Welcome to Weekly News Highlights, where we recap the week with stories that made headlines over the past week. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. Let's begin with the keywords of the week. Following the passing of President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial vote a week ago, the Constitutional Court has decided to hold its preparatory hearing on Yoon's impeachment on December 27th. The State Anti-Corruption Investigation Team, the CIO, will now take control of the martial law order-related investigation into President Yoon, with the prosecution handing over the lead. And Yoon's legal advisor has firmly rejected the insurrection and arrest order allegations. The U.S. Federal Reserve slashed interest rates for a third time on Wednesday, but signaled a slower pace for cuts in 2025. The widely expected cut made all three major indexes see their biggest daily decline in months. The Constitutional Court once again confirmed this week that it failed to deliver legal documents to President Yoon's residence, as the president refused to accept them, while his legal advisor has firmly rejected the insurrection and arrest order allegations. Our Peunji reports.
The Constitutional Court, which has started to discuss the early stages of President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial, said Thursday that it has again failed to deliver legal documents to Yoon's residence as the president refuses to accept them. This is the third time that the president has refused to receive documents related to his impeachment trial. The Constitutional Court has been repeatedly sending such documents to both the presidential office and Yoon's residence, but all have gone undelivered. The court said Thursday that if President Yoon continues to refuse to accept these documents, it will announce its position on Monday on whether the president's action should be regarded as deemed delivery. Meanwhile, Seok Dong-hyun, a lawyer for President Yoon and his longtime friend, said Yoon never ordered anyone to be arrested on the night of the martial law.
The president himself is also a lawyer. From what I've heard, he never used terms such as arrest or drag someone out.
His remarks come after military and intelligence officials have said President Yoon gave orders to arrest lawmakers, including prominent political figures, such as the ruling party leader Han Dong-un and the main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung. According to the National Intelligence Service Deputy Director, Yoon reportedly said they must use this chance to arrest them and wipe them out when martial law was imposed. In a separate briefing earlier in the day, President Yoon's attorney also told reporters that Yoon never considered or agreed with the idea of insurrection.
As a president, he has neither considered nor agreed with the crime of insurrection. Since he has never had such thoughts, it would be regarded that he does not agree with those thoughts.
Seok also said Yoon is willing to represent himself in legal proceedings related to his brief imposition of martial law. He added that although Yoon remains apologetic for declaring martial law on December 3rd, he has a clear and confident position on the issues. After President Yoon was suspended from his duties following the parliament's vote last Saturday, all eyes are now on whether the Constitutional Court will remove him from office or restore his presidential powers. Peunji, Arirang
So, multiple investigation teams have been looking into the December 3rd emergency martial law. But now, the higher-ranking officials' crime investigation agency will take charge of the case. Our Kim Jong-sil tells us more.
The investigation into the December 3rd martial law has taken a new turn. On Wednesday, the prosecution transferred the case to the Corruption Investigation Office for High-Ranking Officials, or the CIO. The move follows concerns over overlapping investigations with the prosecution, police, and the CIO all handling the same case. Officials stated that the transfer was meant to prevent further complications and address concerns about the legitimacy of the charges. However, after the decision was made, there was reportedly resistance within the prosecution's special investigation team, as they claimed to have made significant progress and were frustrated by the sudden change. The transfer case includes allegations of treason against President Yoon Suk-yeol and former Safety Minister Lee Sang-min. While the CIO will now lead the investigation, it does not have the power to charge a sitting president. If evidence is found, the case will be referred back to the prosecution for formal charges. Meanwhile, the investigation continues to focus on the military's role during the martial law period. Around 1,500 soldiers were deployed with rifles, sniper rifles, tasers, and drone jamming devices, along with 10,000 rounds of live ammunition. 100 military vehicles and 12 helicopters were also involved in the operation. Earlier this week on Tuesday, police made a second attempt to raid the presidential office for crucial communication records, but once again, their efforts were blocked by security. 김정실, 아리랑뉴스.
It's been a week since the vote to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol over his martial law declaration passed at Parliament last Saturday. And the impeachment trial process is picking up speed, with the Constitutional Court now poised to hold a preliminary hearing on his impeachment this coming Friday. Now, currently, there are 8 other impeachment cases at the Constitutional Court that came before this, but the court says Yoon's impeachment review will come first. And it's been reported that Yoon-appointed Judge Chung Young-sik has been named as the presiding judge for this case. The presiding judge will lead the discussion and voting among the members of the bench, while also leading the proceedings and drafting the initial version of the court's decision. Now, it'll be the National Assembly's impeachment team versus President Yoon. Former Korea Communications Commission Chief under President Yoon, Kim Hong-il, will lead the legal team for President Yoon. And Kim is also a former prosecutor, and Yoon showed a lot of faith in Kim, appointing him to 2 different posts that need presidential appointments. There will be 2 arguments. One was the declaration of martial law made according to the authority given to the president by the Constitution. 2 was the president's attempt to take over the National Assembly, an act of insurrection. But of course, in the end, it takes 6 out of 9 judges to say that the impeachment is reasonable, which means the 3 vacancies, of course, need to be filled. 2 from the main opposition party and 1 from the ruling party. And on Thursday, acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo held a special cabinet meeting where he exercised his executive right to request a reconsideration by vetoing 6 contentious bills proposed by the main opposition party. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young tells us more.
Acting President Han Duck-soo decided to veto 6 contentious bills forced through by the opposition party, but with a heavy heart as the government seeks closer cooperation with Parliament. This came at a special cabinet meeting on Thursday called by the interim leader, who exercised his right to request a reconsideration of bills passed at the National Assembly in November, having assumed executive powers while President Yoon Suk-yeol faces impeachment proceedings. The bills include the opposition Democratic Party's measures to stabilize prices of rice, agricultural and fishery products, and revise legislative powers. Explaining his decision, Han said mandatory rice purchases by the government would not stabilize prices, but only worsen excess supply and lead to a decline in prices. Meanwhile, overcompensating agricultural and fisheries production beyond disaster relief could lead to moral hazard. He also said the revisions to the National Assembly Act could hinder the smooth execution of the budget, while adjustments to the Act on testimonies and appraisals could violate individual freedoms. Han said his decision was made after much contemplation, as cooperation between the government and the ruling and opposition parties is more critical than ever. The opposition expressed discontent over the veto. Floor leader Park Chan-dae accused Han of disregarding public sentiment, warning if he abuses his veto power, he would face the consequences. However, the opposition is putting more emphasis on 2 particular bills it railroaded through last week. A bill to launch a special counsel investigation into First Lady Kim Gun-hee's alleged misconduct, and a bill seeking a special counsel probe into President Yoon Suk-yeol over his imposition of martial law. The DP has also been ramping up pressure on Han to fill up the 3 vacancies at the Constitutional Court to make up a full 9-member panel. 6 votes are required to impeach President Yoon, which as of now would require a unanimous decision. The acting president has to tread carefully as he aims to promote cooperation with the majority-holding opposition, which has threatened to seek Han's impeachment as well. He has before January 1st to decide whether or not to veto the special counsel bills. Oh Soo-young, 아리랑뉴스.
This week, we take a closer look at rising concerns over a leadership vacuum in South Korea and its potential impact on foreign policy and regional stability. For that, our correspondent Kim Jung-sil joins us now. Jung-sil, so let's start with the U.S. How has Washington responded to this whole political chaos here in the country?
Tami, South this crisis is now in the global spotlight with potential impeachment of President Yoon raises serious questions about the country's leadership and its ability to manage crucial diplomatic and security priorities. The United States has been quick to reaffirm its alliance with South Korea, with Deputy Secretary of State Kirk Campbell recently confirming plans for high-level talks with South Korea's interim government under acting President Han Duck-soo. While we don't have Secretary Campbell's soundbite at the moment, let's listen to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who earlier this week expressed confidence in South Korea's democratic resilience.
I think the most important thing is that the Republic of Korea has demonstrated its democratic resilience. We've seen it follow peacefully a process laid out in its constitution. Most important, we strongly support the Korean people. We strongly support the ironclad alliance that joins our two countries together.
In addition, acting President Han Duck-soo spoke last weekend with U.S. President Joe Biden for 16 minutes, assuring Washington that state affairs will proceed constitutionally and according to law. Biden, in return, emphasized that the ROK-U.S. alliance remains strong and highlighted the importance of maintaining a robust joint defense posture.
Jung-sil, with the political turmoil unfolding, many are wondering how it might affect South Korea-US relationship, especially ahead of the incoming Trump administration, which is set to take off next month. Should we be worried?
Tami, looking ahead to January, experts are urging South Korea to really better prepare for the return of U.S. President Trump. Professor Park Won-gon of Ewha Women's University highlights Trump's way of diplomacy, which could present challenges during South Korea's transitional period. Let's hear what he has to say.
Trump, and he's always thinking about all the relationship, especially with the allies and friendly countries, in a transactional way. So I don't think he considers the current South Korean government as a responsible partner, and he definitely will wait until they settle down.
Professor Park also stressed that the next 6 months will be critical as Trump will be finalizing his foreign policy, appointing key officials, and setting his agenda. He emphasized the need for South Korea to establish a united approach in dealing with the U.S. during this period. He believes that South Korea must show unity across all sectors, the people, government, academia, and opposition. This would demonstrate to the international community that the country is still capable of managing its challenges both domestically and globally.
So there's the U.S. And when we're talking about Seoul and Washington, we have to talk about the trilateral partnership with Japan. Now, what's the reaction coming from Tokyo?
Tami, on Thursday, acting President Han Duck-soo spoke with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and explaining South Korea's domestic situation. They discussed maintaining stable South Korea-Japan relations and trilateral cooperation with the U.S., agreeing to strengthen communication ahead of next year's 60th anniversary of diplomatic normalization. The call came as Japanese media expressed concerns that South Korea's political instability could disrupt trilateral cooperation. Professor Im Chul of Gyeongnam University offers insight into Japan's perspective.
Japan also thinks South Korea as a very important, partner country to deter North Korean provocations and also to deter Chinese, military build-up.
Professor Im added that the current political crisis introduces uncertainty into the bilateral relationship, raising concerns about the stability of regional cooperation.
Then let's talk about other countries, particularly those surrounding the Korean Peninsula.
Well, countries like China and Russia are closely monitoring the situation and are expected to adopt a cautious approach. Experts believe that while neither country is likely to take drastic action, they are waiting to see how South Korea handles the crisis and will adjust their positions accordingly.
One of the primary concerns has been North Korea, while Pyongyang has largely remained rather quiet so far, merely reporting on the progress of the impeachment motion and just citing facts. There's speculation about whether it might exploit South Korea's leadership vacuum to escalate provocations. However, Professor Im believes Pyongyang is unlikely to act recklessly during this time, especially with the US and South Korean militaries prepared to respond strongly to any provocative moves.
Under this kind of political crisis, the United States and South Korean militaries are likely to respond more forcefully to North Korea's, any military move.
Now, the government has a lot of work ahead with the balancing the potential threat of North Korean provocations while demonstrating to the world that South Korea is back on track during this sensitive time.
You're right. And it's important to note that while this past couple of weeks had been tough, we have overcome similar instances in the past with the impeachment of former presidents Park Geun-hye and Roh Moo-hyun. Experts believe that despite these challenges, South Korea's resilience, particularly during the martial law period, will show the world its strength and commitment to democratic values.
All right, Jung-seo, thank you so much for the report today. We'll definitely have to monitor how South Korea navigates, political and also security crossroads.
Yes, we should. Thank you for having me, Dami.
Now, speaking of reassurance, the country's top economic official continues to ease concerns over Korea's financial markets. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has the details.
The government is moving to ensure that finance markets remain in stable territory after the passing of the second impeachment vote against President Yoon Suk-yeol. A sharp drop was previously seen in domestic stock markets in the days after President Yoon's unexpected declaration of martial law and its swift reversal. But this Monday, after the second impeachment vote on Saturday, the Kospi opened up, moving past the 2,500 mark and continued climbing before gradually stabilizing. Although it closed down on Monday, on Wednesday the benchmark index closed up more than 1% thanks to foreign investors turning to net buyers for the first time since the initial impeachment attempt. The Korean currency, however, has been slightly more volatile, closing past the 1,410 mark to the dollar the day after the brief imposition of martial law. And it surpassed the 1,430 mark after the failed first impeachment attempt and has remained in that range even after the second impeachment motion passed. But according to one expert, the fluctuations in the exchange rate are not severe enough to warrant extreme concern.
The Korean won has weakened to around 1,400 against the US dollar, which is around what it was during the 1997 Asian financial crisis and the 2008 financial crisis. But the factors behind are different, so as long as it doesn't surpass the 1,450 mark, you can say it's stable.
He also emphasized the importance of the government's role in building confidence in the country's economic system, which was in line with what Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok said during a rare joint press conference with foreign media on Wednesday.
Given ongoing market volatility due to domestic and external uncertainties, the government will work with all sectors to stabilize the economy, prioritizing external credibility.
To enhance credibility, the government will continue to operate a 24-hour monitoring system for the finance markets and boost incentives for foreign investments. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang
This week, the U.S. Federal Reserve went ahead with another rate cut, raising questions about its balancing act between controlling inflation and supporting economic growth. But the central bank also reined in the number of cuts they expect in 2025. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
The Fed has cut rates once again despite slower than expected progress made on inflation in the United States. On Wednesday, local time following the last Federal Open Market Committee meeting of the year, Fed policymakers slashed the benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points, bringing it down to the 4.25 to 4.5% range. The latest action brings the total cut made since September to 1 full percentage point and comes despite inflation continuing to remain stubbornly above the Fed's 2% target. The U.S. Consumer Price Index jumped 2.7% in November compared to the same month last year, showing an upward trend to the year-on-year jumps in the index.
We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too slowly or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment.
Fed officials also made some adjustments to their forecasts for next year, projecting a slower pace of rate cuts compared to its September forecast, as well as persisting inflation. By the end of 2025, they see 2 rate deductions of 25 basis points each, which is half a percentage point less than what they anticipated 3 months ago. Inflation forecasts also jumped from 2.1% to 2.5%. These are the first projections since Donald Trump was elected the next president of the United States, and Powell remarked that it is premature to make any conclusions on how possible tariffs could affect consumer inflation. Following the Fed's decision, Wall Street tumbled with the Dow Jones falling for the 10th day straight to mark its longest downward slope since 1974. The tech-heavy Nasdaq and benchmark S&P 500 also tallied their largest drops in months. South Korean stocks and currency also fell, with the won surpassing the 1,450 to the dollar mark for the first time since the financial crisis of 2009. The Kospi closed 1.95% lower at 2,435.93, while the Kosdaq closed 1.89% down. This latest decision from the Fed brings the interest rate gap between South Korea and the US back down to 1.5 percentage points, after it widened to 1.75 percentage points in September. Finance authorities, including the country's finance minister and the Bank of Korea's governor, held a meeting on Thursday morning to discuss these developments and the domestic economic situation. The finance ministries and central banks said they would continue to operate an around-the-clock system to monitor the foreign exchange market and pledge to do their best to stabilize financial markets. 문혜련, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korea's intelligence agency has confirmed this week that at least 100 North Korean troops dispatched to Russia to fight against Ukraine have been killed. It cited an unfamiliar environment as one of the reasons behind the high number of casualties. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
At least 100 North Korean troops dispatched to Russia for combat in Ukraine have been killed, and almost 1,000 injured. Such a report was made by South Korea's National Intelligence Service on Thursday during a closed-door briefing to the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee. It is estimated that 11,000 North Korean soldiers have been deployed to the Kursk region, the largest battlefield with Russia pushing to reclaim its territory before possible peace negotiations. As for the reason behind the high number of casualties despite the limited number of battles, the agency cited North Korean troops being used as frontline stormtroopers in unfamiliar open terrain and their lack of capability to respond to drone attacks. Reportedly, there are even complaints within the Russian military, saying North Korean forces have become more of a burden due to their ignorance of drones. The agency also noted the possibility of additional troop deployments.
There are rumors within Storm Brigade of further troop deployments, and signs of Kim Jong-un's participation in training have been detected. So we are closely monitoring the possibility of additional North Korean troop deployments, while expecting Russia's modernizing of North Korea's conventional weapons in exchange.
Meanwhile, North Korea is maintaining a low-key approach regarding the South. Pyongyang appears to be preventing military clashes along the front lines, such as the Northern Limit Line and Military Demarcation Line, while tightening domestic control in preparation for the year-end Workers' Party Central Committee plenary session. When it comes to Seoul's political turmoil, the regime is delivering only facts through state-run media.
Firstly, it is being indifferent to the South based on its hostile two-state policy. And secondly, it is avoiding comments considering Seoul's domestic political situation is favorable to them.
Concerns that exposure to South Korea's democratic system could create internal challenges in maintaining control over its regime was cited as one of the reasons why North Korea has refrained from commenting. Kim Bo-kyung, 아리랑뉴스.
And Christmas Day is almost upon us. For those of you here in Seoul looking to enjoy the holiday vibe, here are a few spots to check out. Here's our An Sung-jin with more.
The year-end festivities have returned. It's the season where friends and families gather together to celebrate and get the feel of Christmas. Ornaments glisten and stars shine on Christmas trees, creating the perfect photo spot.
Department stores have geared up for Christmas this year to attract visitors, and this Christmas market offers various activities, including a carousel ride.
From glue vine to a giant Christmas tree, this Christmas market has opened in the center of Seoul. With more than 40 Christmas-themed shops, it lures in visitors with its vivid colors.
It's been so busy that I didn't even know it was Christmas, but I'm glad I get to spend time with my kid out here like this.
I love to be able to find like typical desserts and stuff from Europe, let's say, and it's amazing because you have the spirit of Christmas here, even in Korea.
In another part of the city, this digital media facade shows Christmas scenes through illustrations and lights beaming from the screen.
The decorations here are so fancy. It's nice to be here.
Though we're now retired designers, we've worked in this area for a long time, so it's nice to see all the decorations out here.
Retailers are rushing to showcase their annual year-end decorations, not only for marketing their brand image, but also to help boost declining in-person purchases. Stores this year have focused on not only displays, but more interactive spaces to keep customers for a longer time. A professor says these eye-grabbing attractions could boost domestic consumption.
People tend to open their wallet when they're a bit more excited, and these decorations act as a catalyst for that. Not only for those actually passing by with social media, it induces consumption, leading to a ripple effect of drawing in more people.
These Christmas decorations not only bring a festive atmosphere, but also a chance to boost the local economy. An Sung-jin, Arirang.News.
And that is all we have for this week's highlight. Thank you so much for staying with us and enjoy the rest of the weekend wherever you are.